The doctor secretly slipped me a note that said, "Don't go home. Run." That night, I discovered my own family was planning to lock me up in a nursing home to steal everything from me. But what they didn't know was that I had a secret that would change their lives forever. My name is Martha. I am 70 years old, and for 45 years, I thought I had raised a loving son. Brandon came into my life when he was just 2 years old, an abandoned boy whom my husband and I adopted with all the love in the world. I gave him everything: education, affection, sacrifice, my best years. When my husband passed away 10 years ago, Brandon became my only family, along with his wife, Vivian, and my granddaughter, Paisley. But that Tuesday, during what should have been a routine doctor's appointment, my world fell apart. Dr. Elliot, my trusted physician for years, examined me as always, but something about his behavior seemed strange. His hands trembled slightly as he checked my blood pressure, and he avoided direct eye contact. "Everything is fine, Mrs. Martha," he told me in a strained voice. "Your lab tests are perfect. Your heart is strong. You have many years of life ahead of you." But when I stood up to leave, I felt him approach from behind. Suddenly, as I gathered my purse, Dr. Elliot discreetly slid a folded piece of paper into the bottom of my handbag. He did it so quickly that I barely noticed. "Take great care, Mrs. Martha," he said with a forced smile. "And remember, family is not always what it seems." His words sent a chill down my spine. What did he mean by that? Why had he given me that note so secretly? I left the office with my heart racing, but I decided not to read the note until I got home. During the taxi ride, 1,000 thoughts crossed my mind. Dr. Elliot had never acted so strangely. He was a serious, professional man who had known my family since Brandon was a teenager. Why was he giving me secret messages now? When I arrived home in Long Island, Brandon was in the living room with Vivian and Paisley. The three of them were talking in low voices, but they abruptly fell silent when they saw me enter. Vivian had several papers in her hands, which she quickly hid behind her back. "How was the doctor's, Mum?" Brandon asked me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "All good, son. The doctor says I'm perfect," I replied, trying to sound normal. Vivian exchanged a look with Brandon that did not go unnoticed. Why did they seem disappointed? Were they perhaps hoping the doctor would tell me I was sick? "That's great, Grandma," Paisley said, but her voice sounded strangely cold. "It means you have plenty of time ahead to enjoy." That night, during dinner, I noticed that my family was acting very strangely. Brandon barely spoke to me, Vivian answered in monosyllables, and Paisley avoided my gaze. There was a tension in the air that could be cut with a knife. "Is something wrong?" I finally asked. "No, Mum. Everything is fine," Brandon replied quickly. "We're just tired." After dinner, I went to my room with a heavy heart. Something was definitely going on, and Dr. Elliot's note was beginning to make sense. With trembling hands, I took the paper out of my purse and unfolded it. What I read took my breath away. "Mrs. Martha, your family was here yesterday. Vivian asked me about your mental state, and if I could certify that you need special care. They want to commit you to a nursing home. They also asked about your inheritance and assets. Don't go home. Run, Dr. Elliot." My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. My own family, the son I raised with so much love, the daughter-in-law I treated like a daughter, my granddaughter who was always my adoration. Suddenly everything started to make sense. The strange looks, the whispers, the hidden papers. They weren't disappointed because I was in good health. They were furious because the doctor hadn't cooperated with their plans. I couldn't sleep that night. Every noise in the house startled me. I stayed awake, listening, trying to understand how I had reached this point. How was it possible that the family for whom I had sacrificed everything was now conspiring against me? At the hour of 2 hours after midnight, I heard voices in the kitchen. I quietly got up and approached my bedroom door. I could clearly hear Brandon, Vivian, and Paisley speaking in low voices, but loud enough for me to understand every word. "The damn doctor wouldn't cooperate," Vivian was saying, irritated. I explained that the old woman is losing her mind, that sometimes she doesn't recognize anyone, that she leaves the stove gas on. But he insisted that she is perfectly fine. "Calm down, my love," Brandon replied. "We'll find another doctor, one who's willing to sign the papers we need." "But in the meantime, what do we do with her?" Paisley asked. "I've already reserved my spot at the university in Los Angeles. I need that money now, not in 5 years when she finally dies of old age." "Paisley, don't talk like that," Brandon chided her, but without conviction. "You're right, though. We need to act fast. The house is worth at almost $500,000, and with her pension and savings, we could live comfortably until she dies," Vivian finished coldly. "Look, I didn't join this family to take care of a senile old woman. I married you because I thought you'd inherit soon. But 10 years have passed, and she's still here, spending our money." "Our money?" I repeated silently, feeling rage beginning to swell in my chest. "All my money, earned with the sweat of my brow and that of my late husband, they saw as theirs." "Tomorrow I'm going to talk to the lawyer," Brandon continued. "I'm going to ask him if we can declare her incompetent without needing a doctor. There must be some way." "And if that doesn't work," Vivian added, "we can always make her life impossible until she decides to go to a home herself. Take away the television, stop cooking for her, treat her like what she is, a burden." "Mum, don't be so cruel," Paisley said, but then added, "Although the truth is, I'm tired of pretending I love her. She's always there, getting into our conversations, asking why we're late. She's unbearable." My legs began to tremble. I leaned against the wall, feeling the world crumble around me. These were the people for whom I had worked 18 hours a day when Brandon was little, for whom I had given up my dreams, my friendships, my own life. "Remember when I turned 15? Paisley continued. "She bought me that awful red dress and made me wear it. All my friends made fun of me. Since that day, I swore that I would get even someday. And what annoys me the most," Vivian added, "is that she's always bragging about what a good mother she was. Everything she sacrificed for Brandon, as if she were a saint. But the truth is, she adopted him because she couldn't have children of her own. She used him to fill her emptiness." "That's enough," Brandon said, but his voice sounded tired, not indignant. "Look, in 1 week, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to tell her that we found a really nice facility, that it will be better for her to be with people her own age, and if she refuses, we'll use Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Paisley asked. "We drive her genuinely crazy," Brandon replied coldly. "We switch her medications, hide her things, tell her she did things she didn't do. In 1 month, any doctor will certify that she's demented." The horror of their words hit me like a punch. Not only did they want to rob me, they wanted to destroy my mind, my dignity, my sanity. They wanted to turn me into what they claimed I already was. "That's perfect," Vivian said excitedly. "And once she's committed, we'll have access to all her accounts. We can sell the house, collect her pension, dispose of everything without anyone bothering us." "Exactly," Brandon confirmed. "And the best part is that no one will suspect a thing. To the outside world, we're the perfect family lovingly caring for the sick grandmother." They laughed. All three of them laughed as if they had told the best joke in the world. They laughed at me at my naivety, at my unconditional love for them. In that moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't my heart. That was already shattered since I read Dr. Eliot's note. What broke was my blind faith in goodness, my belief that love is always returned, my conviction that family is sacred. Early tomorrow, I'm going to make photocopies of all her credit cards, Vivian whispered. That way we can gradually spend without her noticing. Great, Brandon approved. And I'm going to review all her papers. There must be a will out there that we can modify. Modify how? Paisley asked. Let's just say Grandma, in her mental confusion, decided to leave everything to us because we're the only ones who cared for her, Brandon explained with a smile in his voice. Dad, you're a genius, Paisley said admiringly. But we have to be careful. If anyone suspects anything— No one is going to suspect anything, Vivian reassured her. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't have family besides us. She's a lonely old woman who is completely dependent on us. Who is going to defend her? They were right. I didn't have close friends. I had lost touch with most of them when I dedicated myself completely to taking care of Brandon. I didn't have siblings. My parents had died years ago. I was completely vulnerable. But what they didn't know, what they had never bothered to find out, was that I had a secret that would completely change the balance of power in this situation. When my husband passed away, he left me more than love and memories. He left me an inheritance that I had kept hidden all these years. $2 million in a Swiss bank account that only I knew about, plus 3 properties abroad that I had bought as investments. I never told Brandon because I wanted to be sure he loved me for who I was, not for what I had. I wanted him to build his own life, to be independent. But now I realized I had been a fool. He had never loved me. He had only been patiently waiting for me to die, to inherit the little he thought I had. Well, Brandon finally said, I think everything is clear now. We put the plan into action tomorrow. And remember, in front of her, we have to keep being the loving family we always are. Of course, Vivian replied. I'm an excellent actress. I can fake loving her a little longer. I heard their footsteps fade as they walked toward their rooms. I stayed there, paralyzed, with Dr. Eliot's note clenched in my hand. He was right. I had to run. But I wasn't going to run like a frightened victim. I was going to run like a woman who had just awakened from a 45-year dream. I was going to run to plot the most perfect revenge they could imagine. I spent the rest of the night planning. I didn't sleep for a minute, but for the first time in months, I felt completely awake. I knew I had to act fast and smart. They had underestimated the senile old woman, but they would soon discover that they had awakened the wrong woman. At the hour of 5 hours after midnight, when I was sure everyone was asleep, I quietly took out my smallest suitcase and packed only the essentials. Personal documents, a few changes of clothes, my medications, and most importantly, the small notebook where I had written down all the details of my secret accounts. Before leaving, I decided to do something that would give me an advantage later. I took out my phone and activated the voice recorder. Then, I pretended I had forgotten something and walked back through the house, making sure to pass near Brandon and Vivian's room. As I expected, they were already awake, whispering about their plans for the day. Vivian spoke of photocopying my credit cards, while Brandon mentioned his appointment with the lawyer to inquire about declaring me incompetent. Do you think she suspects anything? Vivian asked worriedly. Impossible, Brandon replied. She's too old and trusting. Besides, what could she do? She has nowhere to go, no money of her own, no friends. We are all she has. It's pathetic, Vivian added scornfully. A 70-year-old woman who is completely dependent on us. Sometimes I feel sorry for her, but then I remember she chose this life. She could have remarried after her husband died, but she preferred to stay here being the perfect grandmother. And now she's going to pay for that decision, Brandon concluded coldly. Perfect. I had recorded enough material to sync them later. I put away the phone and finished getting ready to leave. I left a note on the kitchen table. Went out to run some errands. We'll be back later. Martha. I knew they wouldn't suspect a thing. After all, a senile old woman couldn't be planning a strategic getaway. I took a taxi to the nearest bank in New York City. It was Wednesday morning, and I knew I had only a few hours before my family realized something was wrong. At the bank, I withdrew a considerable amount of cash and verified that my secret accounts were intact. The teller, a young woman named Patricia, looked at me curiously when I asked to withdraw $10,000 in cash. "Are you sure, ma'am? That's a considerable amount to carry in cash," she said with genuine concern. "Completely sure," I replied firmly. "I have some personal matters to resolve." After the bank, I took another taxi to the most elegant hotel in the city. I knew I needed a place where I could feel safe while planning my next moves. The Plaza Hotel was perfect, discreet, comfortable, and with services that would allow me to maintain my privacy. "How long will you be staying with us?" the receptionist, an elegant woman in her 40s, asked me. "I'm not sure," I replied. "It could be a week, it could be several months. It depends on how certain family matters unfold." She nodded with professional understanding and assigned me a suite on the 10th floor. As I rode the elevator, I felt a mixture of terror and excitement. For the first time in decades, I was making decisions just for myself. The suite was beautiful, spacious, with a view of the city, elegantly decorated, and equipped with everything I needed. I sat on the living room sofa, and for the first time since the night before, I allowed my emotions to wash over me. I cried. I cried for the 45 years I had spent raising a son who saw me as an obstacle. I cried for the humiliation I had endured without realizing it. I cried for the woman I had been before, becoming the perfect grandmother they despised. But after crying, I wiped away my tears and started planning. I took out my notebook and began to make a list of everything I needed to do. First, contact my financial advisors in Switzerland to activate my accounts. Second, hire the best lawyer in the city. Third, find a private investigator who could help me document everything my family had done and planned to do. At the hour of 2 hours after noon, my phone started ringing. It was Brandon. "Mom, where are you? It's 2 o'clock and you haven't returned." His voice sounded worried, but I could detect the irritation beneath the concern. "I'm fine, son," I replied calmly. "I decided to take a day for myself. I haven't done that in a long time." "A day for yourself? What does that mean? Where exactly are you?" Now his voice was clearly annoyed. "I'm in the city, taking care of some pending things," I partially lied. "Don't worry, I'll be back when I'm done." "Mum, this isn't normal for you. You always tell us where you're going. Vivian is worried. And Paisley too. We need to know where you are." For the first time in years, I detected something in his voice that surprised me. Panic. He wasn't worried about my well-being. He was worried because he had lost control over me. "You know what, Brandon?" I said with a calmness that surprised even myself. "I'm 70 years old. I think I'm old enough to make my own decisions about where to go and what to do." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Mum, you're worrying me. You don't sound like yourself. Are you taking your medication?" he asked. And in that question, I could hear the beginning of his strategy. He was already planting the seed that I was not mentally well. "I'm perfectly fine. Son, I've never been better," I replied and hung up. I immediately turned off my phone. I knew they would call obsessively. and I needed peace to do what I had to do. That afternoon, I hired the most prestigious law firm in the city. The lead attorney, a man in his 50s named Mr. Galen Maxwell, received me personally when I mentioned the amount of money I was willing to pay for his services. I need complete legal protection, I explained. My family is trying to declare me incompetent to take control of my assets, but I have recordings that prove it's a conspiracy. Mr. Maxwell listened intently as I played the recordings I had made that morning. His expression grew increasingly serious. "Mrs. Martha, this is very serious," he finally said. "What your family is planning constitutes elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and potentially document forgery. We could prosecute them criminally." "That's exactly what I want," I replied with determination. "But I need to do it strategically. I want them to pay, but I want it to be in the most painful way possible for them." Mr. Maxwell smiled. It was the smile of a man who had found a case he liked. "Mrs. Martha, I think you and I are going to work very well together," he told me. "I'm going to assign my best team to your case, but I need you to tell me everything, absolutely everything." I told him about Brandon's adoption, about my husband, about the years of sacrifice, about the secret inheritance, about everything. Mr. Maxwell took notes carefully. "Do you know exactly how much money you have in your secret accounts?" he asked me. $2,200,000 in cash, plus 3 properties abroad that are worth approximately $1.5 million more, I replied. Mr. Maxwell stopped writing and looked at me with renewed respect. "Mrs. Martha, you are not just a victim of family abuse. You are a very powerful woman who has been underestimated by her family. We are going to use that power to teach them the lesson of their lives." For the first time in days, I smiled genuinely. The war had begun, but now I had the right weapons. That night, from the comfort of my hotel suite, I turned on my phone to check my messages. I had 37 missed calls from Brandon, 15 from Vivian, and 8 from Paisley. The text messages were increasingly desperate. "Mum, please answer. We are very worried. Martha, if you don't respond, we're going to call the police. Grandma, where are you? Dad says you're going to get into trouble." I decided to reply only to Brandon. "I'm fine. Don't worry. I'll come back when I'm ready." The reply came immediately. "Mum, this isn't normal. You need to come home now. Vivian made your favorite meal." His favorite meal. As if after 45 years, I didn't know that Vivian had never cooked anything special for me. It was another lie, another manipulation. The next day, Mr. Galen Maxwell called me early. "Mrs. Martha, I have interesting news. My private investigator has already started working on your case and discovered something important. Your daughter-in-law Vivian has been using your personal information to apply for credit cards in your name for the past 6 months." "What?" I exclaimed, feeling indignation rising in my chest. "She has 5 credit cards that you never authorized, with an accumulated debt of $43,000. Purchases at luxury stores, expensive restaurants, even a trip to Miami last month," the lawyer explained. "But I never went to Miami," I said, confused. "No, Mom, they went. Your family took a week-long vacation using your money while they told you they were going to visit Vivian's sick mother." The memory hit me like a slap. I remembered that week perfectly. Vivian had cried, saying her mother was very ill and they urgently needed to go take care of her. I had given them money for the trip, in addition to what they had already stolen with the fake credit cards. "Mr. Maxwell, what else did your investigator discover?" I asked, fearing the answer. "Your son Brandon lost his job 8 months ago, but he never told you. He has been living off your savings and pension. We also discovered that he has already contacted 3 different doctors. trying to find one who is willing to certify that you suffer from senile dementia. Each revelation was a deeper stab. Not only had they planned to rob me, they had already been robbing me for months. Not only did they want to declare me crazy, they had already started the process. "And my granddaughter Paisley?" I asked with a broken voice. "She also has her secrets, Mrs. Martha. She is 3 months pregnant, but she is lying to her parents about who the father is. Apparently, the real father is a married man of 50 who promised to leave his wife but now wants nothing to do with the baby." "Oh my God," I whispered. My granddaughter, the girl I had helped raise, was involved in a scandal that could destroy her future. "There's more," Mr. Maxwell continued. "Vivian has been having an affair with the neighbor, David, for the past 2 years. My investigator has photographs and videos proving it." "David? Carol's husband?" I asked, remembering the sweet woman who lived next door to my house. "The same man. Apparently, Vivian and David meet at a motel on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons, while Brandon believes she is at her yoga class." The irony was brutal. While they planned to destroy my life by accusing me of being crazy, each of them was living lies that made them much worse than I had ever imagined. "Mr. Maxwell, I want you to document all of this," I told him with renewed determination. "Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I want them to have evidence of everything when the time comes to confront them." "Of course, Mrs. Martha, but I have a suggestion. Instead of confronting them immediately, how about we let them keep digging their own grave a little deeper?" That afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years: buy new clothes. I went to the most elegant boutiques in the city and bought 3 beautiful dresses: an elegant black one, a vibrant red one, and an emerald green one that made me feel powerful. I also bought new shoes, a genuine leather handbag, and even had my hair done at the most exclusive salon in the city. The stylist, a young woman named Sophia, worked on my hair for 3 hours. "Mom, you have beautiful hair," she told me while she worked. "Why had you let it go so much?" "Because for a long time, I thought it wasn't worth taking care of myself anymore," I answered honestly. "I thought my only function was to be the invisible grandmother who takes care of everyone else." "Well, those days are over," Sophia declared firmly. "When I'm done with you, you're going to look like the queen you've always been." And she was right. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. The hair had a modern, elegant cut, with highlights that brightened my face. I looked powerful. That night, dining in the hotel restaurant, I decided to call Brandon. "Mom, finally, where the heck have you been?" His voice sounded furious, not worried. "Taking care of myself, son," I replied calmly. "You know, I haven't dedicated time to myself in years. It's been very revealing." "Mom, this has to stop. You can't just disappear like this. We are your family. We have a right to know where you are." "A right?" I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "Since when does my family have a right over me?" "Since you started behaving erratically," he replied. And there it was again, trying to plant the seed that I was mentally unstable. Erratic. Does it seem erratic to you that a 70-year-old woman decides to take a few days for herself? Yes, when that woman has never done anything like this before. "Mum, I think you need to talk to a specialist. You're acting very strange." "A specialist?" I asked, feigning confusion. "What kind of specialist, Brandon?" A psychiatrist." "Mum, someone who can help you with these changes in behavior." "Perfect." He himself was admitting his intentions on a call that I was recording. "You know what, son? You're right. I do need specialized help," I told him, and I could hear his sigh of relief on the other end of the line. "I'm glad you understand, Mum." "Yes, I understand perfectly. I need a specialist in family fraud, a specialist in elder abuse, and a specialist in psychological manipulation, because that's exactly what you all have been doing to me." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Mum, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that I know everything, Brandon. I know about the fake credit cards Vivian took out in my name. I know about your plan to declare me incompetent. I know about the doctors you've contacted. I know everything." "Mum, that's ridiculous. I don't know what you're talking about. I really think you need medical help." "You know what else I know, Brandon? I know you lost your job 8 months ago, and that you've been living off my money while lying to my face. I know about the trip to Miami you paid for with my stolen money, and I know many other things that will surprise you very much when you see them in court." "You're delirious," he said, but his voice no longer sounded confident. "Delirious? Did I also dream that last night I heard you planning how to genuinely drive me crazy by changing my medication? Is that a delusion too?" This time the silence was even longer. "Mum, come home. We can talk about this as a family." "No, Brandon. We are no longer family. A family does not betray each other the way you betrayed me. A family does not plot the mental destruction of one of its members to steal their money." "Mum, please. What I will do is give you a chance. A single chance to confess everything, genuinely apologize, and return every penny you have stolen from me. If you do that, maybe, just maybe, I can find a way to forgive you." "We have nothing to confess," he replied, but his voice was shaking. "Then I'll see you in court, son. Have a good night." I hung up the phone, and for the first time in days, I felt completely at peace. The war had been officially declared, and I had all the weapons. The following days were an emotional roller coaster. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with desperate calls from my family. First, they tried the love tactic. Weepy messages from Paisley saying how much she missed me. Choked-up voices from Vivian asking for forgiveness for any misunderstanding, and pleas from Brandon begging me to come home to clear things up. When that strategy didn't work, they switched to fear and intimidation. Brandon left me a voicemail that said, "Mum, if you don't return immediately, we are going to have to take legal action to protect you from yourself. Your erratic behavior is forcing us to consider legal guardianship." But Mr. Galen Maxwell had prepared me for this. "Mrs. Martha, let them file the petition for guardianship," he advised me during one of our meetings. "It will be the best evidence we could have of their true intentions. Besides, we already have 3 independent psychiatrists who have certified that you are in perfect mental condition." Meanwhile, my private investigator had been very busy. Every day I received new reports that left me more surprised than I thought possible. "Mrs. Martha," he told me during our Friday meeting, "your family has dramatically accelerated their plans since you disappeared. Yesterday, Brandon went to your bank trying to access your accounts, saying that you had suffered a psychotic episode and that he needed to manage your finances temporarily." "And what did they tell him at the bank?" I asked. Fortunately, the bank manager is very professional. He told Brandon that he would need official legal documentation to make any changes to your accounts, but Brandon insisted so much that they had to ask him to leave. "Is there more?" "Yes. Vivian has been selling your belongings. Yesterday I saw that she posted several of your antique furniture pieces on an online sales site. She also tried to sell your jewelry collection to a pawn shop, but the appraiser refused because the pieces obviously belonged to an older person, and Vivian could not prove she had authorization to sell them." My heart raced. Those jewels were gifts from my late husband, unique pieces he had collected for decades. "And my granddaughter Paisley, she has been the most active of them all. She has been telling her friends that you are suffering from advanced Alzheimer's and that the family is considering committing you. She has also been using this story to get money borrowed from various acquaintances saying she needs funds to pay for her grandmother's medical care. Each revelation was more painful than the last. Not only were they stealing from me, they were destroying my reputation and using my supposed illness to manipulate other people. But here comes the most interesting part, the investigator continued. Last night, the three of them had a meeting at your house with a man our sources identified as Paul Harding, a known document forger in the city's criminal underworld. A forger? I asked, feeling my blood run cold. Apparently, they are planning to create fake medical documents certifying your mental incompetence. Paul Harding specializes in creating fictitious medical histories and forging doctors' signatures. This was much worse than I had imagined. Not only did they want to rob me, they were willing to commit multiple serious felonies to do it. Mr. Maxwell, I told him over the phone that same afternoon, I think it's time to speed up our plans. If we wait any longer, they'll have fake documents that could complicate things. I agree, Mrs. Martha. Are you ready for Phase 2 of our plan? Phase 2 was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting them directly, we were going to let them publicly incriminate themselves. On Monday morning, I dressed in my new elegant black dress, put on my best jewelry, and headed to the most prestigious real estate office in the city. I had arranged an appointment to view luxury properties, specifically homes over $1 million. Mrs. Martha, the real estate agent, an elegant man named Roger, greeted me. It's a pleasure to meet you. I understand you are interested in acquiring a high-value property. That's right, I replied with confidence. I'm looking for a home that reflects my new stage of life, something elegant, modern, with good security. Perfect. I have 3 properties that might interest you. What Roger didn't know was that my private investigator had coordinated everything perfectly. At the hour of 11 hours after morning, exactly when we would be viewing the second property, Brandon, Vivian, and Paisley would casually appear at the same real estate office. We were in the middle of a visit to a spectacular mansion in the Hamptons when I heard familiar voices at the main entrance. Excuse me, I said to Roger. I think some acquaintances just arrived. When we went down to the main lobby, there they were, the 3 of them, dressed in their best clothes, talking to another real estate agent. We are interested in selling a property, I heard Brandon say. It's my mother's house, but she's ill, and we have legal power to manage her affairs. Legal power? The agent asked. Could you show me the documentation? Well, we are still processing the official papers, Vivian replied nervously. But it's only a matter of days. We want to advance the appraisal process. Hello, family, I said loudly from the stairs. The 3 of them turned around at the same time, and their faces of horror were worthy of a movie. Brandon turned pale, Vivian opened her mouth without making a sound, and Paisley literally took a step back. Mum, Brandon stammered. What are you doing here? The same thing you are, apparently, I replied calmly as I descended the stairs. Although I'm buying, not selling. Roger, my real estate agent, approached with a professional smile. Do you know these people, Mrs. Martha? Unfortunately, yes, I replied. It's my family, or at least, that's what I thought until recently. Mum, we need to talk, Brandon said, trying to sound authoritative, but failing miserably. About what, Brandon? About how you plan to sell my house without my authorization? About the forged documents you are processing? Or about the legal power you just mentioned that doesn't exist? The other real estate agent looked confused and clearly uncomfortable. Excuse me, he interrupted, but if there is any legal conflict over the property, we cannot proceed with any appraisal until it is resolved. There is no conflict, Vivian said desperately. It's just that she hasn't been right in the head lately. I'm not right in the head, I repeated aloud, making sure everyone in the office could hear. That's why I'm here buying a $1.5 million house with my own money. Roger was stunned. $1.5 million? Paisley whispered. Oh yes, dear granddaughter, I said with a sweet smile. It turns out your senile grandmother has quite a bit more money than you thought. I took out my phone and dialed Mr. Maxwell's number. Doctor, I'm at the Richards and Associates real estate office. My family is here trying to sell my property without authorization and claiming they have legal power over my affairs. Could you send someone from your office to document this situation? Of course, Mrs. Martha. Someone will be there in 15 minutes. I hung up and looked at my family with a composure that surprised me. Now we're going to wait for my lawyers to arrive, I announced, and they are going to explain to everyone here exactly what legal documents you have, how you obtained them, and why you think you have the right to sell my property. Brandon tried to approach me. Mom, this is a misunderstanding. We can solve this at home. No, I said firmly, taking a step back. There is nothing left to solve at home. I don't have a home anymore. At least, not with you in it. Vivian started crying, but they were tears of panic, not sadness. Martha, please, we're family. Everything we've done has been for your own good. For my own good? I asked, raising my voice. Was stealing my money with fake credit cards for my own good? Was planning to forge medical documents for my own good? Was hiring a criminal to forge my medical history for my own good? Each accusation fell like a bomb in the real estate lobby. The other clients and employees had stopped to listen, and I could see expressions of horror and disgust on their faces. We don't know what you're talking about, Paisley lied desperately. You don't know. I took out my phone and played one of the recordings I had made. Brandon's voice filled the space. We drive her genuinely crazy. We switch her medications, hide her things, tell her she did things she didn't do. In 1 month, any doctor will certify that she's demented. The silence in the real estate office was deafening. I could see the faces of the employees and clients filling with indignation and revulsion. That recording is illegal, Vivian shouted hysterically. Not in this state, I replied calmly. And definitely not when it's recorded to prevent a crime that is being planned. At that moment, 2 lawyers from Mr. Maxwell's firm arrived, along with a notary public. Mrs. Martha, we are from the Maxwell and Associates firm. We understand there are some people here who claim to have legal authority over your affairs. That's right, I replied. I would like you to officially document that these 3 people have absolutely no legal power over me, my properties, or my finances, and that any attempt to exercise such authority constitutes fraud. One of the lawyers addressed Brandon. Sir, could you show me the documentation that supports your authority to sell Mrs. Martha's property? Brandon opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. We are in the process of... That is to say, you have no documentation, I declared, because you have no authority. What you do have is a criminal plan to steal everything I own. The public humiliation in the real estate office was just the beginning. When we left the building, my family followed me into the street, alternately shouting and pleading. Mom, wait, Brandon shouted. We can fix this. It's all been a terrible misunderstanding. Grandma, please, Paisley cried. I love you. You can't do this to us. Vivian, for her part, had completely changed her strategy. She was no longer feigning love or concern. You're a bitter old woman, she screamed at me as I got into my taxi. You've used all of us all these years. Brandon gave you the best years of his life, and this is how you repay him. The best years of his life? I turned to her from the taxi window. Are you referring to the years when I worked 18 hours a day to support him? The years when I gave up my career, my friends, my social life to raise him? Those years. You chose to adopt him. Vivian retorted with venom in her voice. No one forced you, and now you expect us to owe you eternal gratitude. I don't expect you to owe me gratitude, I replied with deadly calm. I just expect you not to steal from me, not to betray me, and not to plot to drive me insane to keep my money. Apparently that was too much to ask. I told the taxi driver to drive off, leaving my family shouting on the curb. That afternoon, Mr. Maxwell summoned me to his office for an urgent meeting. Mrs. Martha, I have extraordinary news, he told me with a smile I hadn't seen before. Your family made a critical mistake after the incident at the real estate office. What kind of mistake? In his desperation, Brandon went directly to the document forger, Paul Harding, and paid him $50,000 up front to speed up the creation of your fake medical documents. $50,000? Where did they get that much money? From the credit cards they took out in your name, and apparently Vivian sold her car. But here's the best part. Paul Harding is an FBI informant. He has been collaborating with authorities for the past 6 months to dismantle a document fraud network. I was speechless for a moment. Do you mean that your family is not only being investigated for family fraud, but they are now under federal investigation for conspiracy to commit medical document fraud? The FBI has audio and video recordings of the entire transaction. That night, from my hotel suite, I decided to do something I had been putting off. Confront each member of my family individually, but not face to face. I had something much more powerful in mind. I opened my laptop and created an account on the most popular live streaming platform in the country. My title was simple but effective. A grandmother tells the truth about her family. At the hour of 8 hours after evening, I began my first live broadcast. At first, there were only 3 viewers, but to my surprise, the number began to grow rapidly. Good evening, I began, looking directly at the camera. My name is Martha. I'm 70 years old, and tonight I'm going to tell you a story that will change the way you see perfect families. In 20 minutes, I had over 500 viewers. By the end of the hour, there were over 3,000. I told them everything. From Brandon's adoption to Dr. Elliott's secret note. From the fraudulent credit cards to the plans to drive me crazy. I played the recordings, showed the documents I had collected, and explained every betrayal in precise detail. The live comments were overwhelmingly supportive. What a horrible family. Mrs. Martha, you are a warrior. Sue them. Let them pay for everything. My grandmother went through something similar. Thank you for being brave. But what really changed everything was when, halfway through my broadcast, I received a live call. It was Paisley. Grandma, please turn off that broadcast, she pleaded. You're ruining our lives. I'm ruining your lives, I repeated so all the viewers could hear. Don't you think you ruined mine first? Grandma, everyone is watching us. My friends, my teachers, the whole school. I can't even leave the house. And how do you think I would feel if I had been committed to a nursing home against my will, declared mentally incompetent, and robbed of all my money? That was never going to happen. We were exploring options. Exploring options, I yelled, losing the composure I had maintained for days for the first time. Paisley, I raised you since you were a baby. I changed your diapers, took you to school, took care of you when you were sick, and you were there, smiling, while your parents planned to destroy me. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, but the live comments exploded. Tell her the truth. This girl is shameless. Mrs. Martha, don't let yourself be manipulated. Grandma, Paisley finally said with a broken voice, I need money for college and for other things. I thought you thought I what, Paisley? You thought I was your personal bank? You thought you could collaborate in a plan to drive me crazy and then use my money to pay for your studies. It's not like that. Then how is it? Explain it to the 4,000 people watching us right now. Explain to them why you told your friends you needed to borrow money to pay for my medical care when I was perfectly fine. Another silence. Then, barely audible. How do you know that? Because I'm not the senile old woman you think I am. I know everything, Paisley. Everything. Including things about you that your parents don't know. What? What things? Things that could ruin your future much more than this broadcast could. She hung up immediately, but the damage was done. The viewers had heard my granddaughter implicitly admit that she knew about the plans against me. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Brandon, and he sounded absolutely furious. "Mom, turn off that damn broadcast right now," he roared. "Hello, Brandon," I said sweetly. "Do you want to talk to the 5,000 people watching us? This is defamation. I'm going to sue you for slander." Slander? Is it slander to play audio recordings where you plan to drive me crazy? Is it slander to show bank statements that prove you've been robbing me for months? Those recordings are illegal. Not in this state, son. And definitely not when they are made to prevent a crime. But tell me, do you want to explain to all these viewers why you paid $50,000 to a document forger yesterday afternoon? The silence was so long that I thought he had hung up. How? How do you know that? Because Paul Harding is an FBI informant, Brandon. Congratulations, you are now not only being investigated for family fraud, but for federal conspiracy. You're lying. Want to bet? Check the news tomorrow morning. Or better yet, wait for the federal agents to knock on your door. The live comments went wild. FBI, FBI, FBI. This family is going to jail. Mrs. Martha is a detective. Justice for Grandma. "Mum," Brandon said with a broken voice, completely different from the fury before. "Please stop this. We can still fix it. We are family." "No, Brandon," I replied with genuine sadness. "A family doesn't betray. A family doesn't steal. A family doesn't plot the mental destruction of one of its members. What you are is not a family. It's a criminal organization that shares a last name. We gave you 45 years of our lives." "You gave me? I gave you 45 years of mine. I gave up everything for you. And you? You were just waiting for me to die to inherit what you thought I had?" "We need that money, Mum. We have debts, problems, and that's why you decided to drive me crazy. That's why you decided to rob me. That's why you decided to destroy the last years of my life." It wasn't personal. Those 3 words hung in the air like a death sentence. It wasn't personal. 45 years of love, sacrifice, and dedication. And for him, it wasn't personal. "You're right, Brandon," I finally said. "It wasn't personal for you. And from now on, it won't be personal for me either. I'll see you in court." I hung up and looked at the camera. "And that, dear viewers, was my family," I said with a sad smile. "I'll continue with this story tomorrow. Good night." I ended the broadcast with over 7,000 viewers and hundreds of messages of support. For the first time in weeks, I went to sleep feeling like I wasn't alone in this battle. The next morning, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. My live stream had gone viral. I had thousands of messages of support, hundreds of interview requests from media outlets, and surprisingly, dozens of messages from seniors who had gone through similar situations. "Mrs. Martha," one of the messages said, "my son did exactly the same thing. Thank you for being brave and telling your story. You have inspired me to take action." Another said, "I'm a lawyer specializing in elder abuse. Your case is textbook. If you need additional help, I'm at your disposal at no cost. But the message that impacted me the most was from a woman named Eleanor. Mrs. Martha, I am a social worker. Yesterday I prevented a family from committing their 75-year-old father after watching your broadcast. Your courage is saving other grandparents. Mr. Maxwell called me at the hour of 9 hours after morning. Mrs. Martha, your broadcast last night has completely changed the landscape of this case, he told me excitedly. I have 3 important pieces of news. Tell me, I replied, pouring my morning coffee into the hotel's elegant china. First, the district attorney contacted me this morning. They want to file criminal charges against your family based on the evidence we have collected and the partial confessions they made during your live stream. Partial confessions. When Paisley admitted she needed money, and when Brandon didn't deny the charges about the forger, they were technically making admissions of guilt live before thousands of witnesses. What's the second piece of news? Your family hired David Morales, one of the most expensive lawyers in the city. Apparently, they spent another $30,000 they don't have to pay him. $30,000 more? Where are they getting all that money? Here comes the third piece of news, and it's the most shocking. Vivian secretly mortgaged the house where you live. Using forged documents that showed her as a co-owner, she obtained a mortgage for $200,000 3 weeks ago. I gasped. She mortgaged my house. Your house, Mrs. Martha. And the worst part is, the money is already spent. $50,000 to the forger, $30,000 to the lawyer, and the rest they apparently used to pay off the fraudulent credit card debts and other expenses. Does that mean what? That technically the bank now has a claim on your property based on falsified documents. We are going to have to fight this too, but I am confident we will win. After hanging up with Mr. Maxwell, I decided to do something I had been putting off: visit my house in Long Island. Not to reconcile with my family, but to retrieve my most valuable belongings before they mysteriously disappeared. I arrived at the hour of 11 hours after morning, accompanied by 2 lawyers from the firm and a judicial officer who had authorized my entry to collect my personal belongings. The house looked neglected. The lawn I kept perfectly manicured was overgrown with weeds, and there was trash piled up at the entrance. Brandon opened the door with a look of total shock. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I've come to collect my things," I replied coldly. "These people are my legal representatives, and this officer is here to ensure that I can take my belongings without interference." Vivian appeared behind Brandon, disheveled and in her pajamas in the middle of the morning. "You can't come in here," she screamed hysterically. "This is our house now." "Your house?" one of my lawyers asked. "Do you have documents to prove that claim?" We live here," Vivian stammered. "Living on a property doesn't make you the owner," the lawyer explained patiently. "And it certainly doesn't give you the right to mortgage it fraudulently. I entered my own house for the first time in over a week, and the state I found it in horrified me. The living room was littered with takeout containers, empty alcohol bottles, and clothes strewn everywhere." "What did you do to my house?" I asked, feeling the rage rise in my chest. "We're stressed," Paisley mumbled from the stairs. "We haven't been able to clean." "Stressed from planning how to rob me," I countered. "Stressed from trying to drive me crazy. Stressed from fraudulently mortgaging my property." I went up to my room and found something that left me speechless. They had completely rummaged through my drawers, my closets, my most intimate belongings. It was clear they had been looking for something. "What were you looking for?" I asked Brandon, who had followed me. "Nothing, Mum. We were just worried about you." "Worried? Is that why you ransacked my room?" I opened my jewelry box and confirmed my suspicions. Several pieces were missing, including the diamond earrings my husband had given me on our 20th anniversary. Where is my jewelry? I asked directly. What jewelry? Vivian lied. I took out my phone and dialed the private investigator's number. Could you tell me exactly what jewelry you found that Vivian tried to sell at the pawn shop? I asked on speakerphone so everyone could hear. The diamond earrings, the pearl necklace, the white gold bracelet with emeralds, and the backup engagement ring, the voice recited from the phone. Vivian went pale as a sheet. Those jewels are in the safety deposit box, she lied desperately. What safety deposit box? My lawyer asked. Do you have legal access to a safety deposit box in Mrs. Martha's name? Total silence. Vivian, I said in a dangerously low voice, you have exactly 24 hours to return every single one of my jewels. If they don't appear, I'm going to file additional charges for aggravated theft. While I packed my most important belongings, I could hear my family desperately whispering in the kitchen. I decided to approach to listen. We have to get the jewels back, Brandon was saying. I can't, Vivian replied. I already sold them. We needed the money for the lawyer. You sold all of them? Paisley asked, horrified. What did you want me to do? We needed another $50,000 for Paul to make the documents faster. But those jewels were worth over $100,000, Brandon shouted. $100,000? I asked from the kitchen entrance. The three of them turned around as if they had seen a ghost. Mum, we can explain, Brandon began. Explain how? Explain that you knew exactly how much my jewels were worth when you stole them. Explain that you sold them for a fraction of their value to pay a criminal. Explain that you not only stole objects of incalculable sentimental value, but you also undersold them. We urgently needed the money, Vivian sobbed. For what? To pay the forger who was going to help you steal all my money? To pay the lawyer who was going to help you declare me crazy? Paisley began to cry. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know the jewels were so important to you. You didn't know? I looked at her with disbelief. You didn't know that your grandfather gave me the diamond earrings the day I first met you. You didn't know that the pearl necklace belonged to my mother. You didn't know that each of those pieces had a story, a memory, a part of my life. I thought they were just old things, she murmured. Old things. Like me, right? The judicial officer approached. Mrs. Martha, if you've finished collecting your belongings, we should leave. Yes, I replied, taking the last box. I'm done here. Forever. As I left the house, Brandon shouted at me from the doorway. Mom, we can still fix this. We're family. I turned around one last time. No, Brandon. Family is built with love, respect, and trust. You destroyed all three. We are no longer family. Now we are just adversaries in a court of law. I got into the car and drove away from the house where I had lived for 45 years, knowing that I would never return as the woman I had been. I was returning as the woman I had become, a warrior who would not let herself be destroyed without a fight. The following days were a whirlwind of legal and media activity. My second live stream, where I showed the state of my ransacked house and narrated the theft of my jewels, was viewed by more than 15,000 people in real time. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive, but some broke my heart. My family did the same thing to me last year, one woman wrote. Thank you for giving me the courage to report them. Mrs. Martha, you inspired me to review my father's finances. I discovered that my brother had been robbing him for years, another person commented. But it was a private message that truly impacted me. I'm your neighbor Carol. Vivian told me that David and she were seeing each other secretly. I thought you should know. I have photos if you need them for the trial. Carol, the sweet neighbor whose husband David had been having an affair with my daughter-in-law for 2 years. Even in my pain, I felt compassion for her. On Friday morning, Mr. Maxwell summoned me for an urgent meeting. "Mrs. Martha, I have news that will change everything," he told me with a smile I hadn't seen before. "The FBI arrested Paul Harding last night, and in his interrogation, he confessed everything about the transaction with your family. Everything. Not only did he admit that Brandon paid him to falsify medical documents, but he also revealed that your family asked him to create a fake will in your name, leaving everything to them and declaring that you were mentally incompetent when you signed it." I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. A fake will. Apparently, the plan was much more elaborate than we thought. They were going to use the fake medical documents to have me committed, then present the forged will, and finally wait for me to die in the nursing home to legally inherit everything. "Oh my God," I whispered. How long had they been planning this? According to Paul Harding, Vivian first contacted him 4 months ago. This was not a desperate, last-minute decision. It was a calculated and premeditated conspiracy. That afternoon, as I processed this new information in my hotel suite, I received an unexpected call. It was Paisley, and for the first time in weeks, her voice sounded genuinely broken. "Grandma, can we talk? Please, just you and me." "For what, Paisley? So you can lie to me more? So you can try to manipulate me emotionally?" "No, Grandma. To tell you the truth, the whole truth, I can't take this anymore." Something in her voice made me hesitate. I decided to take a risk. "All right, but it will be in a public place, with witnesses, and I am going to record the entire conversation. Whatever you want, just, please, we'll meet in the hotel lobby coffee shop." Paisley arrived with eyes swollen from crying, dressed carelessly, very different from the vain girl I knew. "Grandma," she began before I could say anything, "you have to know that I never wanted things to go this far." "How far, Paisley? How far did you think was acceptable?" "At first, Mum and Dad only talked about convincing you to move to a luxury nursing home. They said it would be better for you, that you would have company with people your age." "And what did you think?" I thought maybe they were right. The house is too big for you alone, and sometimes you seemed lonely." She stopped and looked me in the eyes. "But that was before I knew about the money." "What money?" "They didn't know about my secret accounts." "No, but they knew about your pension, about the savings you had in the local bank, about the value of the house. Mum had been investigating for months." "Investigating how?" "She went through your papers when you weren't around. She called your bank pretending to be you. She even went to see your old boss to ask about your retirement pension." Each revelation was a deeper stab. "And when they decided that simply convincing me wasn't enough," Paisley started crying. "When Mum found out you could live another 20 years, she said she couldn't wait that long, that she needed the money now." "What did she need the money for so urgently?" "To pay Dad's debts. He lost a lot of money on sports betting over the last 2 years. He owes more than $100,000 to very dangerous people." Another shocking revelation. Brandon hadn't just lost his job. He was a compulsive gambler with dangerous debts. "And what role did you play in all of this?" I needed money for college, and for other things." She unconsciously touched her belly. "Other things like what, Paisley?" "I'm pregnant, Grandma," she finally confessed. "The father is a married man who wants nothing to do with the baby. I need money to decide what to do." My heart broke for my granddaughter, but I also felt deep anger. "And that's why you decided to participate in a plan to drive me crazy?" "I didn't know they wanted to drive you crazy," she cried out, drawing glances from other coffee shop patrons. I thought they only wanted a doctor to say you needed special care. What's the difference, Paisley? I don't know. I guess there isn't a difference. She cried silently for a few minutes. Grandma, when you left home, everything fell apart. Mum and Dad do nothing but fight. Mum says it's all Dad's fault for gambling. Dad says it's all Mum's fault for being too ambitious. And I'm in the middle, pregnant and terrified. And now what do you want from me? I want you to forgive me. And I want you to know that if you testify against Mum and Dad, I'm going to tell the truth. Everything I know, everything I saw, everything I heard. I remained silent, processing this unexpected offer. Why would you change sides now, Paisley? Because last night, Dad told me that if everything goes wrong, they are going to say that I was the one who came up with the idea to steal your jewelry. They are going to say that I manipulated them into doing it because I needed money for drugs. Drugs? I don't use drugs, Grandma. But Dad says it's more believable to blame the rebellious teenager than to admit that they planned everything. The final betrayal. Not only had they betrayed me, now they were willing to betray their own daughter to save themselves. Do you have proof of what you're telling me? Paisley took out her phone. I have recordings of all their fights since you left. I have text messages where they plan to blame me. I have videos of Mom counting the money she got from selling your jewelry. Why did you record all that? Because a week ago, I realized that when all this is over, they are going to abandon me too. I'm a minor, I'm pregnant, and I don't have any money. They are going to need a scapegoat, and that scapegoat is going to be me. I stared at her, trying to determine if this was another manipulation or if I was finally hearing the truth. Paisley, if you decide to testify against your parents, your life is going to change forever. Your relationship with them will be completely over. My relationship with them is already over, Grandma. From the moment they decided to use me as part of their plan against you, and then decided to sacrifice me to save themselves. And what do you want in exchange for your testimony? I want you to help me finish high school. I want you to help me make the right decision about my pregnancy. And I want you to teach me to be a strong woman like you. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of the old connection I had with my granddaughter. Paisley, if you do this, if you help me get justice, I'm not only going to help you with high school and your situation, I'm going to teach you something much more valuable. What? I'm going to teach you that real family is not defined by blood, but by loyalty, respect, and genuine love, and that sometimes protecting yourself means walking away from toxic people, even if you share their last name. Paisley extended her hand across the table. Deal, Grandma. I shook her hand, knowing that this moment would mark the beginning of the end for Brandon and Vivian. Deal, my girl. But now you are my ally, and allies protect each other. Are you ready for that responsibility? More ready than I've ever been for anything in my life. The day of the trial came faster than I expected. In 3 weeks, Mr. Maxwell had built a case so solid that even my family's expensive lawyer recommended they plead guilty to negotiate a lesser sentence. But Brandon and Vivian refused. They wanted to take the case to trial, convinced that they could manipulate the jury with the image of the loving family caring for the confused grandmother. The day the trial began, I arrived at the courthouse dressed in my most elegant black suit, accompanied by Paisley, who had decided to move in with me at the hotel for the duration of the legal process. "Are you nervous, Grandma?" she asked me as we climbed the courthouse steps. "No, my girl," I replied calmly. "I am at peace. The truth always finds its way." The courtroom was packed. My story had become national news after several media outlets covered my live streams. There were reporters, cameras, and dozens of seniors who had come to show their support. When I saw Brandon and Vivian at the defense table, I barely recognized them. Brandon had lost weight and had deep, dark circles under his eyes. Vivian looked haggard and nervous. The stress of knowing they were facing years in prison had taken its toll. The prosecutor presented the case masterfully. He showed the audio recordings where they planned to drive me crazy. He presented the evidence of the credit card fraud. He explained the conspiracy with the document forger. And finally, he showed the proof of the fraudulent mortgage on my house. But the most impactful moment came when Paisley took the stand as a witness for the prosecution. "Miss Paisley," the prosecutor asked her, "can you tell us what you heard when your parents discussed the plans for your grandmother?" With a firm, clear voice, Paisley narrated every conversation, every plan, every betrayal. She described how they had planned to switch my medications, how they had calculated how much money they would get from my death, and how they had decided to blame her if everything went wrong. When she finished testifying, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. I saw several jury members wiping tears from their eyes. The defense attorney tried to discredit Paisley, suggesting she was lying to get money from me. "Miss, isn't it true that you are pregnant and need money?" he asked her aggressively. "Yes, I'm pregnant," Paisley replied with dignity. "And yes, I need help. But I am not lying to get it. I am telling the truth because it is the right thing to do. And isn't it convenient that your grandmother promised to help you financially in exchange for your testimony?" "My grandmother did not promise me money in exchange for my testimony," Paisley replied firmly. "She promised me support because I finally had the courage to do the right thing. There is a difference." When it was my turn to testify, I took the stand feeling the weight of all the eyes in the courtroom on me. "Mrs. Martha," the prosecutor asked me, "can you tell us how you felt when you discovered your family's plans?" "I felt like I had lived a lie for 45 years, I replied. "They didn't just betray me. They made me question every moment of love I thought I had shared with them. They made me wonder if I was ever anything more than an obstacle between them and my money." "And how do you feel now?" "Now I feel free," I said, looking directly at Brandon. "Free from the lies, free from the manipulation, and free from the obligation to love people who never truly loved me." The defense attorney tried to make me look like a vengeful, rich woman who was exaggerating the situation. "Mrs. Martha, isn't it true that you have millions of dollars that you never mentioned to your family?" "It is true that I have resources they were unaware of," I admitted. "But those resources do not justify conspiring to drive me insane, stealing my identity, or forging legal documents." "Don't you think your family deserved to know about that money?" "Deserved? Why? For plotting my forced commitment, for robbing me for months, for betraying me in the cruelest way possible." The trial lasted 5 days. In the end, the jury deliberated for barely 2 hours before returning with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all charges. Brandon was sentenced to 12 years in state prison for conspiracy, fraud, document forgery, and elder abuse. Vivian received 10 years for the same charges, plus additional charges for mortgage fraud. When the judge read the sentences, Vivian broke down crying. Brandon simply stared ahead with a blank expression. After the trial, as we left the courthouse, a reporter asked me, "Mrs. Martha, do you feel that justice was served?" "I feel that legal justice was served," I replied. "But the real justice was discovering who I truly was before it was too late to enjoy the rest of my life." 6 months later, I bought a beautiful house in the suburbs of San Diego. It's smaller than my old house, but it's full of light and has a lovely garden where Paisley and I spend our afternoons. Paisley finished high school with honors and decided to keep the baby. She is now studying law, inspired by everything we went through together. She says she wants to specialize in protecting the elderly Grandma, she told me a few weeks ago as we worked in the garden, do you ever regret adopting Dad? I don't regret adopting him, I replied, gently stroking the flowers we had planted together. I only regret not having understood sooner that kindness should never be practiced at the expense of self-destruction. And what did you learn from all of this? I learned that real family is not defined by blood or shared years. It is defined by mutual respect, genuine loyalty, and unconditional love. I learned that it is better to be alone with dignity than accompanied by betrayal. And I learned that it is never too late to start over. Now, at 71 years old, I am living the fullest life I have ever had. I travel, I read, I have new friends, and above all, I have a genuine relationship with my granddaughter, who has become the daughter of my heart that I always wanted to have. Brandon and Vivian tried to contact me from prison several times, but their letters go straight into the trash unopened. Some doors, once closed, should never be opened again. Every night before I go to sleep, I give thanks for three things. For Dr. Elliot, who had the courage to warn me. For my own strength, which I didn't know I had. And for discovering that endings can also be beginnings if you have the courage to write your own story. Kindness is still important in my life, but now I practice it with wisdom. I help other seniors who face similar situations. I support Paisley in her studies, and I have created a foundation to prevent elder abuse. But more important than all of that, I finally learned to love myself as much as I loved others throughout my life. And that, dears, is the most valuable lesson of all.